بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم نحمد الله ونصلي على رسوله الكريم أما بعد قال الله تبارك وتعالى أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا كونوا قوامين بالقسط شهداء لله ولو على أنفسكم أو الوالدين والأقربين يكن غنيا أو فقيرا فالله أولى بهما فلا تتبعوا الهوى أن تعدلوا وإن تلووا أو تعرضوا فإن الله كان بما تعملون خبيرا. قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم بشروا ولا تنفروا يسروا ولا تعسروا. وفي حديث قدسي يا عبادي إني حرمت الظلم على نفسي وجعلته محرما بينكم فلا تظالموا إلى آخر الحديث. صدق الله وصدق رسول النبي الكريم ونحن على ذلك من الشاهدين والشاكرين والحمد لله رب العالمين. All praise is due to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and salutations on our beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and all those who followed them in righteousness, in huda, and all those who promoted the message and the course of Islam. Jamaatul Muslim, I wanted to entitle this khutbah as Let Us Dream Together. Let's dream together. And the Arabic is Hayya bina natahalam. Arabic is so beautiful that it has that mutual way of including people. So dreaming together, it's not simply haluma, but it's tahalum, dreaming mutually. And then the subtitle of the khutbah is Living Islam Dangerously, Creatively and Proudly. Living Islam dangerously, creatively and proudly. I'll also have a few humble recommendations. Now Islam is under siege. We all know that the war on terror is a war on Islam. And we know that the people behind the war on terror, of course, the Zionists. And they are not dangerous in Israel or in America, but they are throughout the world. Every place they touch, they become a danger. They entrap, they spin wheels within wheels within wheels. And Muslims are unfortunately becoming apologetic without having to do so. That's why wherever I go, I actually encourage Muslims to watch Ertugrul. If you're into the 5th season and you know who Dragos and Baybulat and Sirma and all these characters are, Bahatan or Sadatan, you will find there's always these traps within traps and wheels within wheels within wheels. But ultimately the truth triumphs and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala comes to the assistance of those who are principled and those who are established in the truth. Now we look at many of the fascist governments, greedy governments, whether it's Israel, America, France, many of these other governments, we call them war economies or disaster capitalists. And then we find they have criminalized Islamic symbols. Suddenly the minara in Switzerland, suddenly the domes, suddenly even whiteness within Masjid in Nairobi became a problem. So that some of the masajid, to protect themselves, had to paint themselves yellow, because now whiteness is seen as a color of terror. Green is seen as a color of terror. I drove from where we live is about 40 minutes north of Detroit, and driving from there to Chicago takes about 5 hours. I heard that there was going to be a group of Sri Lankan leaders speaking at the church. And so I thought it's worthwhile taking that 10-hour drive and just to be part of that. It was good I did that, because I realized that these leaders, portraying themselves as interfaith leaders, are saying that because Muslim women are wearing the black abaya and the men are wearing the white thobes and the men are sporting beards, that was a sign of terrorism and a sign of radicalization. And I challenged him. I said, here in America, we have the Amish, we have the Mormons, we have so many groups who are set in their ways. Why are you portraying that as extremism or terrorism. Because if people have conservative or ultra-conservative views, that does not translate into extremism. Extremism does not translate into jihadism. Jihadism doesn't translate automatically into murder and mayhem and chaos. But these people immediately made that connection. Khalid Baidoun wrote a book, and he found that every Muslim, whether you're the Muslim woman who doesn't wear any scarf or even a mini skirt, no matter how ultra-liberal or ultra-orthodox you are, that they would still place you in a terrorist camp. And so it's important to know that the war on terror is really a war on Islam, and the chief culprits behind that are the Zionists. But Muslims are smart enough. We are the people of the essence, ulul albab and ulul nuha. And we have always been sophisticated and nuanced enough to know that you make a distinction between Judaism as a religion, the Jews as honest and hardworking, innocent people, and the Zionist or Israeli establishment. The ayah of the Quran is very clear, and that is in Surah Ma'idah, ayah number 8, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, and let me just get that, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, كونوا قوامين لله شهداء بالقسط ولا يجرمنكم شنآن قوم على ألا تعدلوا اعدلوا وأقرب للتقوى. In the case of the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, a munafiq implicated and framed a Jewish person. Islam came to the defense of the innocent Jewish person. If justice is about innocence, we have to defend an innocent Jewish person. And not say simply because you are Jewish, you have to. So we have that. We have that in our tradition. It is mandatory. That's a Quranic imperative. But when we speak of the beast, the Zionist beast, or the Israeli beast, then that's a total different matter. We need to speak the truth. As Imam Harun, rahimahullah, as Tuang Guru, Tuang Yusuf. These are our heroes. I think this coming week, this Tuesday, Imam Harun would have been arrested 50 years ago. It would be the 320th year of Tuang Guru's passing on. So these are our heroes, these are our shuhada, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless them, and may Allah help us to keep their memories alive. So everything Islamic has been criminalized, our symbols, our practices. Our scholars have been controversialized. Our academics have been denied tenure. And many of our lands have been occupied with impunity and with always the mask of democracy, the mask of freedom and civilization. And unfortunately, they are also using people like Mohammed bin Salman, the new Babylons. And these are the people now who are told to invade Yemen. Almost everything in Saudi, as we've said, is Yemeni. And it's so horrible to hear that they're now going to execute not only Shia scholars, but also Sunni scholars. One of the mentors of Sheikh Yasir Qadi is also going to be slaughtered, I would say, after Ramadan. Sometimes I feel we need to stand up and don't support them. Don't go for Umrah for a while. In fact, in Libya, the Grand Mufti said, don't even go for Hajj for a while, just to stop that particular madness. I'm not discouraging the Hajj. I would love to go for Umrah every month, but it's just looking at some of the realities on the ground. When we grew up in apartheid time and our Hujjaj went for Hajj, when we got to Nairobi, when we got to Malaysia, when we got to any country, they treated us horribly. Even though we were brown blacks, we were also suffering. Israelis need that. The whole world needs to treat them like the scum that they really are. Only 5% of Israelis are really, of their academics, are really looking at, are sympathetic to the Palestinians. Others are calling for blood. Others are calling for a Holocaust of the Palestinians. And so this is something that is If there are 629 ayat on adl and qist, then for us to be true Muslims, we have to stand up all the time for justice and for fair play. There's a gentleman by the name of Ta-Nehisi Coates in 2015. He won the Best New York Times award for writing. And he wrote about the race in America. And many people wrote to him that whatever he wrote, even he wrote the facts, and he was so balanced that he is a conspiracy theorist. Whenever you're going to tell the truth, whenever you're going to dig for the truth, because in Arabic the word for the research is tahqiq, you get to the haqq, you are going to be called a conspiracy theorist. So glad tidings to the conspiracy theorists and the other people who are really spinning out conspiracies. Every Muslim is a terrorist. Every woman wearing hijab is guilty of passive terrorism. Every minaret is a missile. Allahu Akbar is a war cry. Whatever nonsense. That is the real conspiracies, but it's been passed off as truth. So glad tidings to those who are being called conspiracy theorists. Now, what does it mean to live Islam creatively? We have to think of institutions that are going to outlive us, and that we call a legacy of monumentality. In architecture, you have monumentality. There are 9 points of monumentality, and one of these, you start something that will outlive you. Something that starts as impossible but becomes the inevitable. Let us say we want to put up 10 or 20 full Muslim universities that are even better than UCT, better than Harvard. Then we start now, hopefully in 50 years' time, we'll have that. Our madaris, maybe our Darul Ulooms and all these places can also then qualify to offer PhDs. We need to think the Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said we should plan as if we're going to live 100 years. We should make pray or do our salah as if we're going to be called to Allah after that salah. So have we got a 100-year plan? Right? So those are some of the questions we need to be asking ourselves. I've often wondered, and I know there's a Fajr group here, please support them, and the Fajr group of Sheikh Salama, they are concentrating on our African communities. We need at least 1,000 masajid, whether it's in Guguletu, in Kayalicha, in Langa, in Soweto, 1,000. These are opportunities. These people want to embrace Islam. They want to live Islam. They see the beauty of Islam. We are sleeping. Allah is going to question us about that. And we could prevent the like of an all-black Imam conference if we know that any type of racism is not part of the DNA of Islam. We have inherited that from the colonial past, whether it's our Dutch past or our British past. If you are racist, if you are using the K word very freely, you are not practicing Islam. What did the Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam do with Bilal? When it was the Battle of Badr, everyone started to use the battle cry of Ahad, 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 the one that was a Bilal, the battle cry of Bilal radiallahu anhu. How are we treating our black brothers and sisters? So we need to think of masajid, we need to think of strategically placing Islam throughout Southern Africa. Many of the Arabs came to the coast of Africa and married into the black people, and we have the Swahili culture coming up. So may Allah forgive us if we are racist. It is part of the colonial remnants, and it is not part of the DNA of Islam. So to live Islam creatively, we need to think very creatively. One of the things we could imitate is perhaps what we call the Southern Poverty Law Center. We must realize that the world is very legalistic, very litigious. And if you get people by putting policies into place, then that is the most powerful and effective way of stopping bullying or bigotry. You know, if you have a bully in school and he comes for your child's satchel, or you have a backpack, Tomorrow, if it's easy, he will come for something else. He's not going to stop till he get whatever he get and still keep on beating you up. In order to stop the bullying, we do it non-violently, we do it through the legal way. In 1981, there was a group called the Southern Poverty Law Center. The Vietnamese just came from Vietnam and they settled out in Louisiana, in New Orleans. They were very, very much into fishing. They were harassed by the KKK, the Ku Klux Klan, and these people intimidated them. And so the lawyers went up to them, this law firm, and said, listen here, if we're not going to stop them here when they bully you about the fisheries, they're going to bully you wherever you go. Put a stop to that. So they filed a lawsuit, and they won the lawsuit, and that winning, they call it the award, a $6 million award. Now, that was 1981. Now, 1981, $6 million is like $3 billion. Every million is like $3 billion. 3 billion times 15. So you do the math. So then they only didn't have from 6 million, they also got awards of 26 million. And this was in the early 80s. And 26 million translates into 1.050 trillion rand. Now imagine that. They bankrupted the bigots. Once you go after these people with lots of money, you bankrupt them, that's the only way to stop it. We have been making a lot of noise about Palestine here in Cape Town. And yet the Israelis can come in freely without a visa. Palestinians still need a visa to come in here. So somehow we are not that effective. We need to think more strategically. We need to target every Israeli that's touring, not only here but throughout the world, wherever we have some impact. That may be the best way to stop that madness and to see that we help our brothers in Palestine in a very unique way. Also expose them. Every act of terror taking place throughout the world, whether it's in Mumbai, whether it is in Myanmar, you will somehow find there's a Zionist connection to that. Whether it's in northern Pakistan, there's some type of Zionist connection. I say this, and I know I'm not going to get any type of good appointments at universities in the US, but I think it's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will see to our rizq, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will take care of us. What is also powerful about these enemies of Islam, they convince the victims that you are victimizers. Now, you're the victim. If all Muslims are victims of this war on terror, then convince you that you are actually the culprits. Your people are terrorists. Your people are this. And now suddenly we go everywhere and apologize for this, that, and the other. So convincing the victims that they are victimizers. They make everyone powerfully afraid. After the killing, the massacre in New Zealand, we all cried, of course, but there was something sinister about that. You would think now that because Muslims were attacked in 2 masajid in New Zealand, the Muslims should guard themselves and protect themselves. No, the churches and synagogues were defending themselves, because they were now given a new spin to the whole New Zealand attack, that the Muslims finally got a bit of what they deserved. They're going to come back to us, so we better protect ourselves. You see the type of poisonous, distorted thinking that we have out there. It's lovely for me to come back after 20 years and listen to I went to Pretoria, I went to Johannesburg, in Cape Town, and there's a great Islamic literacy coming up. And it's lovely to see Muslims know their Islam in a unique way. But please, use every type of influence you have to go outside our community. The like of an Ibrahim Rasool or a Nadia Pandor and these people. Nadia Pandor might become the new deputy president for a short while. These are just fabulous examples, but we cannot have just a few people representing us. We need our men and our women. Politics is such in the modern world. If you're not at the table, you're going to be on the menu. If you're not at the table, you're going to be on the menu. And politics is everything. Through politics, you can sometimes avoid disasters that are billions of dollars worth. Through politics, you can actually give benefits to your community that are billions of dollars worth. You think that collecting a few 100,000 rand is much, or even a million rand is much? That's nothing. What the Jewish people have done in America, they have the Holocaust teachings or teachings about the Holocaust in every grade. If you can ensure that Tuang Yusuf and Imam Harun and all our heroes, Dr. Abdurrahman and these people are being taught in every grade in South Africa and even at university, then you are making progress. But if you keep all this just among yourselves, we are not going to we're not going to defend. I was intrigued about the history of Dr. Abdurrahman, and I didn't really know how very important Dr. Abdurrahman was also, until one of my colleagues at university did research on him and found that Dr. Abdurrahman was the first to take Gandhi over to England. And Gandhi then became active because of that. And also Gandhi, he had women in his APO, African People's Organization. 9 years later, Gandhi imitated that. So the stories of Dr. Abdurrahman, of Sisi Gul, these are just amazing stories. We need to, the biggest crime we could commit is what we call memoricide. We allow people to forget the memory of the great history. And if you study the history of disaster capitalism, Naomi Klein's work on the shock doctrine, you will find that the only antidote to this type of disaster capitalism is actually knowing your history. So standing for peace and also knowing your history. So yes, we are living Islam dangerously, but the Hadith and the Quran promise us that if we have more difficult times, if you practice Islam fil harj wal marj, everything you do is 10 times more. The Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam once sat and he told the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, and these are in the Sunan of Imam Achmat bin Hanbal and other ahadith, that in the early times, if the Sahaba radiallahu anhum had to practice less than 90%, there would be failures. But if we in the Akhirul Zaman manage to practice 10%, we would succeed. Now look at that concession we have been given. Don't have a checklist of 100 things to make people Muslims. Only then you can be Muslim and then we can recognize you. I see my time is coming to an end. But the last point I want to make is that we must live Islam proudly. Every part of the Quran, every part of the Hadith is so powerful and so timeless. And we must actually, we must believe in that. We must have yaqeen and conviction. Hifdul Quran. In many places in Senegal, in many places in the Arab world, the Christians are forcing their children to become Hafidul Quran because of the benefits of that. Now there's a hadith of the Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, Hamilul Quran la yakhrab, that the person who memorizes the Quran won't degenerate. We can make a link between Alzheimer's, dementia, and memorizing the Quran. You shouldn't just let your children learn the Quran. You should also be in your 50s and 60s. 55 you call the third age. So in the third age, you should also start to memorize the Quran, if that is going to stop dementia and stop Alzheimer's. Now, that is only Hifdul Quran. Professor Asifa Landers is of the opinion that the Sharia, and Sharia, our definition of Sharia is multiple salient ways of being human. The Sharia is beneficial to all women. Now, what do the West people in the Islamophobes say? Sharia suppresses women. She says Sharia is good for all women. And this is what she says. Umar bin Khattab, once a man came and complained about his wife. And Umar bin Khattab radiallahu anhu reminded him that our wives don't have to cook. They don't have to clean the house. They don't have to nurse the children, raise the children. These are favors and these are not duties. Now, it comes from our fiqh books. It comes from the time of the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Our culture has spoiled us, and may Allah bless our mothers, may Allah bless our sisters who still spoil us. But don't break up your marriage because of these silly things. These are not Islamic, these are cultural practices, and this is not part of our... So, if this is what the Sharia teaches, I went to Qatar on my way here, and the Qataris are upset with our South African women who change their last name, their surname. You have to keep your father's name. So they get upset. It's not only reminding them, but they actually genuinely get upset about that. So we have a lot of rights that our women have that we are not practicing, and we really need that, give that back. But even with the environment, there is no sacred book that has such sympathy for animals and for the plants as the Quran and the Hadith. There's a problem in Botswana now, and they had, because of the countries to the north, they're having a lot of issues. They are destroying the habitat of the elephants. So the elephant population have now increased from 60,000 to 230,000 elephants. They may come down to South Africa and say hi to us. But be that as it may, what does the Quran say about these animals? Umamun amthalukum, that they are nations just like you are nations. We need to get together as an ummah and see how can we protect these nations of the elephants. Even the bee is given wahi, and the ant is speaking in the first person of the Quran. So having said that, Islam is good for all times, for everyone. The last story comes to mind. Even every dot in the Quran is significant. Now the word Masih for Isa alayhi salam comes from the word Masaha. And Masaha means to touch. But if it's on the pattern of Fa'il, it means to touch and be touched. In the time of Isa alayhi salam, there were people with leprosy. They had to stay 30 cubits away from non-lepers. Isa alayhi salam allowed the leper to approach him, to touch him. He touched the leper and healed the leper and many other lepers. Today, other people have leper status in society. So we become Isa, like when we heal communities. The word Masih has a single dot differentiating the word Masih from Masih, and it means a Dajjal. But Masakha in Arabic means to conflate, to deceive, or distort. Of course, Trump is one of them. Distorting, deceiving, conflating. So everyone can become Masih. But also, it is so interesting, sometimes you could easily take the little dot off and make the Masih again. Umar bin Khattab went to kill the Prophet ﷺ. He became Umar al-Faruq. The Mongols went to just ransack and lay waste to the lands of Muslims, and they became the rulers. They married into the Seljuks and the Ottomans and Safavids and the Mughals in India. They became the most exemplary rulers. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has got very, very unique ways and strange ways. You must believe that everything of the Quran has something so beautiful, something so dynamic, something so gifted, and it's timeless and it's for all time. Live Islam dangerously. There's so much reward in that. Live Islam creatively. Think of your 100-year plan. Create a movement. Leave a legacy of monumentality. And also live Islam proudly. Lastly, and I repeat the story because I know some of our children always remember a little story. There was a Quran teacher in Egypt, and Egypt is beautiful. Every Muslim city you find the adhan being staggered, and maybe for 10 minutes the adhans would continue. So she was Asr time, busy with some grape leaves for her husband. He was coming from work. She had 3 grape leaves left, and she decided she's not going to complete those grape leaves. So the adhan for Asr went, she first had to do her salah. She loved the ayah of the Quran, وَرَضِيتُ إِلَيْكَ رَبِّي وَعَجِلْتُ إِلَيْكَ رَبِّي لِتَرْضَى. I'm rushing to you, my Lord, so that you could be satisfied. And so she did her Asr. Her husband came home, very found it strange that normally the table is ready, and he checked on her, found that she's in sujood. After 5 minutes, he says, there's something wrong. he checked on her again and found that she's still in sujood, and as he got closer, realized that she has returned to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You must also instill in your children, وَعَجِلْتُ إِلَيْكَ رَبِّي لِتَرْضَى, a rush to your Lord so that your Lord can be satisfied. Please pray Allah forgive us our sins, Allah protect us, and just remember optimism is mandatory. We have to create something for our children's sake. The Native Americans always believe everything you do today must benefit 7 or 10 generations from now. So let us do things now that can benefit. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to use us as instruments of His guidance. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help us to turn every hurt into healing, every hostility into hospitality, every bigotry into benevolence, every meanness into meaningfulness. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala turn the likes of those who want to persecute Islam into people like Omar bin Farouk and others who were persecuted by the truth and then champion the truth. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help us to bring peace where people are in pieces and where people are wounded. May Allah bless this community, may Allah protect this community, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us not only hardworking and diligent Muslims, but also smart Muslims, with the like of the visions of Tuan Guru, Imam Harun, Dr. Abdul Rahman, all the other great leaders of the past. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin.